Black out again, and I will have Reed drag you out of this ring before these buyers spend another dollar here, my stepbrother Gavin said into the microphone. Then he hit the air horn. Every horse in the indoor snapped upright at once. A scholarship girl on a gray pony jerked so hard her mother lunged for the rail. One of the buyers near the coffee station spilled half his cup down the front of his coat. The sound bounced off the walls and came back sharper, uglier, like the whole place had just been told who it belonged to now. Gavin stood in the center of my father's ring, like he had been waiting his whole life for that exact picture. Clean boots, pressed jacket, microphone in his hand. Buyers watching, parents watching, riders frozen in their saddles. He did not look like a horseman. He looked like a man rehearsing ownership. Then Vanessa stepped through the in-gate with my event clipboard in one hand and the master keys in the other. "Do not touch another horse today, Naomi," she said. "Go back to the shed if you need somewhere to sulk. The adults are trying to save this place." That line landed exactly the way she wanted. It told the buyers I was unstable. It told the parents I was unsafe. It told every kid in that ring that the woman who had taught half of them how to sit a spook and breathe through fear was now the danger in the room. My father had been dead 4 days, and my stepmother Vanessa was already standing there with Martin Vale, the investor she had been sleeping with, behind his back, smiling through a showcase built to sell off my father's land, barns, house, everything else they thought they could turn into cash. Right then I only cared about one thing: stopping Gavin from dragging Velvet Star into that ring when she had just come off. A sickness had not been cleared to work, and had no business carrying a young rider just because she was the prettiest horse we had. Velvet Star was the kind of mare people crossed a yard to stare at. Deep bay coat, black legs, white star, neck like something carved for a sales catalog. She was also the same mare tied to the accident that cracked my skull more than a year earlier. The same mare I had pulled from work 10 days ago when her fever finally broke and her lungs still were not where they needed to be. Dr. Marrow had not cleared her. I had marked her restricted myself. Gavin knew it. He just did not care. Because Gavin did not love horses. He loved what beautiful horses did to weak people with money. I looked past him to the line of buyers under the white banner, men and women with polished shoes and polite smiles who had not driven out to Fox Hollow to save it. They had come to watch the little riding exhibition, nod over coffee, and decide how much my father's life might be worth once it was broken apart into parcels, horses, equipment, and views. Vanessa lifted the keys a little higher so the metal caught the light. "Go on," she said. "Sulk if you want. Gavin can handle the part that matters." My phone buzzed once against my thigh. North Exhibition Aisle audit lock active. Medication room audit lock active. Warm-up chute audit lock active. Good. That morning I had done exactly one thing. I had tightened every safety point around Velvet Star. I just knew Gavin would try to force that mare into the ring, and I knew she was not fit to be there. I slid the phone back into my pocket and looked straight at Gavin. "Fine," I said. "Run it." The smile that hid his face was fast and hungry. He thought I was breaking. Really, I was just stepping out of the way of what he was about to do to himself. 18 months earlier, I had been in the outdoor jumper ring with a 12-year-old scholarship rider named Ellie and Velvet Star under saddle. That mare was alert that morning, but she was wrong too. Too bright in the eye, too much sweat for mild weather, too reactive off a touch she normally would not have cared about. I remember thinking she felt like a wire pulled too tight. Then a simple sound by the rail set her off. Ellie lost balance. I got to the bridle before the child could go under the horse. I got her clear. Then the ring post hit the side of my head and the world went white. What came after was a fractured skull, months of headaches, nausea, balance drills, light sensitivity, and every humiliating little test required to prove I was still allowed to do the work I had built my life around. Neurologists, writing assessments, instructional reviews, insurance approvals. I passed every one of them. That did not stop Gavin from using the accident as his opening. At first it was little things said to the right people. "Naomi still gets dizzy when she pushes too hard. Naomi probably should not be making live safety calls for children. Naomi is good with the horses, but pressure is different now." Vanessa handled the prettier version of the same poison. She used a soft voice and sad eyes and turned lies into concern. My father heard more than they thought. He also knew exactly who was carrying Fox Hollow while he spent the last year in and out of a hospital bed. It was not Vanessa, who somehow always had the energy for dinners, shopping, and private lunches with Martin Vale, but never enough time to sit by my father's bed unless someone else was there to watch her do it. It was not Gavin, who loved an investor, handshake, a microphone, and any jacket that made him look like the future. It was me. I did the feed orders, payroll triage, vet coordination, lesson schedules, billing, inventory, medicine logs, stall moves, and all the small ugly math it took to keep that place breathing while medical bills bled us dry. I taught. I mucked. I wrapped legs. I scrubbed buckets. I smelled like hay, iodine, manure dust, and winter sweat for months. Vanessa smelled like expensive perfume and candlelit restaurants. Gavin smelled like the men he was trying to impress. My father died, and 4 days later, Vanessa changed the house locks. The next morning, my clothes, boots, books, and notebooks were stacked in plastic tubs outside the mudroom. She stood on the porch while I stared at them and told me the house needed to look right for visitors. She said the tack shed would do for now. That was how I ended up sleeping on a folding cot beside cracked trunks, old blankets, moldy leather, and feed bins, while the woman who had never once kept the place alive told the world she was trying to save it. 3 days before the showcase, I found the first real sign that Gavin was moving beyond talk. Velvet Star's restriction note had been altered in the system. I changed it back. The next day, one dose record in the medication room came up short. That night, a groom told me Gavin had been asking whether halter transponder bands could be swapped between horses without confusing the gate readers. That was when I stopped hoping this was just greed, and started locking down the part of Fox Hollow that still told the truth. My father had installed our tracking system years earlier after a liability scare. Exhibition horses wore coded transponder bands. Restricted doors and chutes logged movement. The medication room logged access. Horse health files stamped every edit. Even emergency key overrides left a trail. Most people in this business mocked systems like that until they needed something to remember better than a liar. So before the buyers arrived, I put the exhibition aisle, the medication room, and the warm-up chute under audit lock on the grounds of a temporary safety discrepancy involving a restricted horse. That was all I did. Everything after that belonged to Gavin and Vanessa. From the glass viewing corridor above the north aisle, I could see the indoor ring, the warm-up chute, the north stalls, and the system dashboard on my tablet at the same time. The first alert hit in under 2 minutes. Manual override warm-up chute Gavin Hart. Then, manual override north exhibition aisle Gavin Hart. Then, health file edit Velvet Star, restricted to cleared for showcase. User Vanessa Sutton. There it was. The next alert came sharp in red. Band mismatch Velvet Star reading as Harbor. Harbor was our safest school gelding, steady enough for a nervous beginner. Gavin had switched Harbor's transponder band onto Velvet Star to muddy the movement record. Quick, crude, desperate. Exactly his style. Then the camera feed from stall 9 appeared on my screen. Gavin stepped inside. Velvet Star's stall, looked over his shoulder, lifted her lip, and squeezed one syringe of paste into her mouth. He pocketed it, reached for a second tube, and did it again. My stomach turned so hard it hurt. A calming agent, first to quiet what the mare might show, then something to light her up again, to put shine back on top of the quiet. He was trying to build a perfect sales horse out of a recovering mare who should have been resting. I watched for 5 more seconds, long enough to see him lead her out toward the chute, and long enough to see one of our junior riders adjusting her gloves by the mounting block. That was enough. I went back down. By the time I stepped through the gate, Vanessa was laughing softly with Martinvale, while Gavin held Velvet Star on the lead like he had already won the room. Absolutely not, I said. Every face turned. Ann Mercer, from the County Youth Equine Safety Board, stepped forward before Gavin could smooth it over. Before this continues, I need the authorized live safety signatory, she said. Gavin lifted a paper from the judge's table. That is me today, he said. We made a temporary change for the event. I held out my hand. Let me see it. He hesitated. Only a beat, but Anne noticed. Then he passed it over. The form was ours. The name under the final line was not. Interim Operations Lead Gavin Hart. Typed. Fresh. Meaningless. I handed it to Anne. This is not valid, I said. The only person listed with the insurer and the juvenile safety file for live exhibition sign-off is me. Vanessa let out a long, patient breath like I was embarrassing her in front of church friends. Naomi, please, she said. Your doctors cleared what they could. That does not change the fact that stress still affects you. That was the line she wanted the room to carry home. So I opened the folder I had kept under my arm and laid the papers on the judge's table one at a time. Neurological clearance. Unrestricted. Riding clearance. Unrestricted. Instructional certification. Current. Insurance approval for youth instruction. Active. I have been fully cleared for over a year, I said. Both of them knew that when they told you I was dangerous. The room shifted. Not all the way, but enough for Gavin to feel it. He moved fast. This is exactly what I was talking about, he said. She turns everything into a breakdown. Then let us keep it simple, I said. I pointed at Velvet Star. That mare is restricted. She was not cleared by veterinary order. He overrode the locks, switched the band record, and put drugs in her mouth to drag her out here anyway. The junior rider near the mounting block stepped back on her own. Gavin laughed too sharp to sound relaxed. You are guessing, he said. I was done speaking only to him. I picked up the remote from the judge's table and lit the arena screen. The access logs filled the wall above the ring. Warm-up chute manual override Gavin Hart. North exhibition aisle manual override Gavin Hart. Health file changed from restricted to cleared, Vanessa Sutton. Band mismatch Velvet Star reading as Harbor. Then I opened the stall clip. Nobody made a sound while they watched Gavin drug that mare. Dr. Elise Marrow had just come in through the side doors with her field bag. She saw the screen, saw Velvet, and moved straight toward us. Do not mount that horse, she said. She crossed the ring, checked Velvet Star's mouth, pulse, and eyes, then looked back at the buyers with a level of professional disgust that did not need volume to land. This mare has been given more than one substance, she said. At minimum, a calming agent and a stimulant. In a horse just off illness, that is reckless on its face. In a horse carrying a young rider, it is dangerous. Anne opened the compliance file and took out her pen. The live writing segment is suspended pending a full safety incident review, she said. That should have ended the day. It did not end, Vanessa. She stepped toward the buyers with one hand at her chest. Fox Hollow is collapsing, she said. We are trying to save what Robert built, and Naomi cannot handle reality. Martinvale put a hand on her elbow like he had practiced it. That was when Dr. Marrow asked the question that changed the shape of the whole room. Has this mare ever been involved in a prior incident that raised concerns? I looked at Velvet Star, then at Gavin. Yes, I said. The accident that put me in the hospital. For the first time that morning, I saw fear move across his face. Dr. Marrow looked back at the screen, then at the current chart, then at me. How far back do your medication archives go? She asked. As far as the cloud mirrors and insurer backups keep them, I said. Anne closed the file, opened it to a clean section, and wrote the date again. Then we are opening the archive, she said. I had not come into that ring planning anything beyond stopping the current violation. But there was one thing my father had said after I came home from the hospital while I still had bruises on my face and the kitchen light made my head pound. If Gavin ever touches Velvet Star again, call Daniel. At the time, I thought he meant because Daniel Price handled every family mess too ugly for family. I did not know he meant more than that. So while Anne and Dr. Marrow had our office manager start pulling the mirrored logs, I sent Daniel a text with 2 words. It happened. He arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a slim, locked file box. He did not stride in like a savior. He came in like a man, who already knew his work would matter more once the room was ready to hear it. By then, the archive search had already started giving us pieces. On the morning of my accident, there had been an unexplained medication room access before dawn. The access badge belonged to Gavin. Velvet Star's chart that day had a stress notation added then removed. The insurer mirror still had the deleted version. A medication discrepancy had been logged, then buried under a duplicate correction. And one old corridor camera clip, grainy and ugly but clear enough, showed Gavin entering stall 9 with a tube in his hand less than an hour before Ellie Road. Dr. Marrow read the old records twice. Then she looked at the current screen, the current drug signs, and finally at Gavin. The pattern is similar, she said. Buried harder last time, but similar enough that I would not call the earlier event natural anymore. Anne turned to him. Did you tamper with this mare before the accident that injured Naomi Sutton and again today? He said nothing. Vanessa did. This is insane, she snapped. Robert knew Naomi was unstable after that fall. He knew Gavin was the only one who could make this place presentable. Daniel set the file box on the judge's table and opened it. Not presentable, he said. Saleable. Robert knew that too. He took out a sealed envelope, broke it, and unfolded a single sheet in my father's handwriting. He read it into the ring. If Gavin ever touches Velvet Star again, open every file. I could not prove what he did the first time, but I know that mare, and I know the look in that boy's face when the fear of a child can buy him leverage. The whole arena went still. Then Daniel laid down a second set of papers. Since that instruction has now been triggered, he said, the rest of Robert's standing documents are no longer sealed. He looked at Vanessa first. Your husband did not leave Fox Hollow to grief assumption or marital performance. He separated his personal estate from the writing center months before his death. He placed the business property, the barns, the operating accounts, the investor authority, the horses, and the residents attached to Fox Hollow under one control structure. Then he turned to me. Naomi Sutton. Vanessa laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. That is not possible, she said. I am his widow. Daniel nodded. And Robert provided for you accordingly. Insurance proceeds, personal accounts, the town car, your jewelry schedule, and a temporary residential license in the main house. Then he tapped the next page. Temporary. Conditional. Revocable upon attempted sale, misrepresentation of operating control, interference with equine safety, or any effort to remove Naomi Sutton from management by fraud. This morning you changed safety records, participated in a medication incident involving a restricted horse and a minor, and misrepresented control of this property in front of buyers. Your residential license is terminated, effective immediately. No one in that room needed the line explained. The woman who had pushed me into the tack shed had just talked herself out of the main house. Gavin took one step toward Daniel. She set us up, he said to me. I shook my head. No, I stopped you from putting a recovering horse under a child for a sale pitch. The rest was what my father left behind for the day you proved him right. That was when Daniel turned to the buyers. One more matter, he said. Every packet distributed today, proposing purchase, redevelopment, or asset transfer of Fox Hollow, is unauthorized and fraudulent. Vanessa Sutton and Gavin Hart do not own this property, do not control it, and have had nothing legal to offer any of you. He picked up one of the glossy packets Vanessa had been handing around. On the cover was a polished rendering of Fox Hollow turned into some softened luxury event estate, all string lights and polished stone, where my father had built turnout lanes and schooling tracks. You were invited to a sales presentation by people who had no authority to sell, Daniel said. Martin Vale stepped back from Vanessa so fast he nearly hit the coffee station. Good, I thought. Let everybody see exactly who had been using whom. Reed, the same man Gavin had named in his opening threat, came over from the rail, and held out his hand to Vanessa. "Keys," he said. She stared at him like loyalty was still something she could summon. He did not blink. She dropped the ring into his palm, one key at a time. Gavin still had the microphone. "Put it down," Anne said. He did not move until Dr. Mare spoke without even looking at him. "Now." He dropped it on the judge's table so hard the speakers barked with feedback. Vanessa tried one last line on me as Daniel gathered the fraudulent sales packets. "After everything I endured as his wife, this is how you repay me," she said. I had slept beside mice in a tack shed while she drank wine in my kitchen with the man who wanted to carve my father's land into something profitable. Whatever answer she thought she deserved had died days earlier. "You did not endure Fox Hollow," I said. "You spent it." That shut her up. Anne finished her incident report. Dr. Mare had Velvet Star taken back to the barn under strict observation. The junior rider was already crying softly with her mother holding her shoulders. All I could think as I looked at them was how close Gavin had come to doing it again. Another child. Another horse. Another disaster he could turn into leverage. Only this time the room had seen him before he could bury it. Vanessa and Gavin were given until sunset to remove their personal belongings under supervision and leave the property. The look on her face when she realized the main house was gone to her almost matched the look on mine from the day she threw me out of it. Almost. After the buyers left, after Martinvale disappeared without saying goodbye, after the county paper had gotten every photograph it needed, I walked back to the tack shed alone. My cot was still there. My blanket. My boots. My extra jacket hanging from a bent nail. The place still smelled like damp leather hay dust, and the stale humiliation of being told I belonged there. I folded the blanket slowly. Then I carried everything through the yard, past the ring, past the porch where Vanessa had smiled at buyers, and straight back into the house my father had not let them take. The next morning smelled like wet earth and rain that still had not decided whether to fall. Velvet Star stood in her paddock, with her head over the fence, tired but safe. Dr. Mare had come back at dawn and said she would recover because someone had finally stopped treating her like a display piece and let her be a horse again. I rested my hand against her neck for a moment, then walked to the inn door. The scholarship riders were already lined up by the rail. Their mothers watched quietly. No one looked at me with suspicion anymore. They looked at me like they understood which adult had been telling the truth. I stepped into the center of the ring with the same whistle Gavin had used to stop everything the day before. Then I blew one short note, not to humiliate anyone, not to sell anything, just to begin. They threw me into the tack shed and tried to sell my father's life around me. All they really did was prove why he left it in my hands.